Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mac. Boys and girls, just like the little old woman who lived in a shoe, I got so much Q, I don't know what to do. This information waterfall seems to be a dam about to break. John took the day off because he can't count past 20, so we're going to start at 27:54, 28 minutes after the hour, 1 p.m. We get this right here, entitled Driver's License Map, July 2015. And according to the legend, the states in red are the ones that are offering driving privileges to unauthorized immigrants. The ones in green do not. And then we get this Twitter link right here. Thawk230555136, greatest is love on Twitter, who posts new Q mega memes. And this is the link right here. Now, just so you know, this link is at the bottom of my video description all the time. This has always been here for you. And if this is a new one, then I will update it again for this video. But on the left, you can see all the different categories here. All these memes that Anons have made for you already. So for those of you who want to post memes or don't know how to make memes or whatever, come on over here and grab them. There's so many of them over here, and it's always getting updated. There's a ton of stuff here. Okay? Now, here's what I don't want you to do. Don't make a meme and then email it to me saying, here, Patrick, I made a meme. I hope you can do something with it. Don't pass the buck. The whole point of this is for you to take this stuff and pass it to your friends and to people who don't have this information already. I'll help as much as I can, but this is for all of us. And hopefully this will help you. So this link will be down below, and it always is in all of my videos. So thank you to Thawk230555136 for posting that. And then they post this picture here, which is really, I think, what Q wants us to look at. Countries requiring IDs to vote. And as you can see, there's a whole buttload of them. Iceland, Sweden, New Zealand, Denmark, Canada, Ireland, Switzerland, Finland, Australia, Luxembourg, Netherlands. You get the idea. Even Papua New Guinea and Burkina Faso. But you can see down here, the United States. We got a little X there. What's wrong with that? What's going on with that? So you see what's up. Most countries, if you want to vote, you got to have an ID. Simple as that. Now, in our country, you can get driving privileges in these states, which, I'll be honest with you, around the world, there are a lot of countries I've been in where you can get driving privileges just if you show that you have maybe a license from another country. But oftentimes that's in regards to like a motorbike or something like that. If you want to drive a full-on automobile, yeah, you probably are going to have to get something. Doesn't mean you can't get one, but you do have to go through, a particular process. Now, that's different from country to country, and I can't speak to a ton of them other than the ones that I've been to, and you probably have your own experience here. But in the United States of America, we've got a pretty sophisticated our infrastructure is great. And in order to drive a vehicle out there, you should be able to furnish some proof of identification or something like that. So in these states, as long as, and they're kind of different, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. But, essentially there's a connection here between being able to get driving privileges and being able to vote. And that's the point that Q's trying to make. Q says it's very simple. Without the illegal vote, Democrats lose. Previous illegal immigration, high population versus Democrat win by county provided. Example 2. Why did Democrats push for illegals to obtain a driver's license? Does having a driver's license make it easier to vote? Yes, it does. And this is the next link right here. And this is where this map comes from. Now, we're not going to go through this here, but you can see here it simply states states offering driver's licenses to immigrants. Now, they're all a little bit different here. And we can see, here's California. This law requires the Department of Motor Vehicles to issue driver's licenses to individuals who are ineligible for a social security number if the required document is provided. And they're all a little bit different, but you can read about your state if these are one of your states. California, Colorado, Connecticut. Why is it not pronounced Connecticut? Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, What does it say about Maryland? This law authorizes the issuance of driver's licenses to those who do not have lawful status or a valid social security. How about Hawaii? This law authorizes the issuance of driver's licenses to residents of Hawaii who cannot provide proof of authorized presence in the United States. Wait a minute. Provide proof of authorized presence in the United States. So you don't even have to be there. You don't even have to have a tourist visa. You don't even have to furnish anything, and you could probably still get a driver's license in Hawaii. Okay, so that is definitely not okay. What states provide driver's license to illegals? Well, we just went over here, and you want to see it again? Take a look. California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Vermont, Washington, and D.C. So, what checks are in place within each of these driver's license granted states to prevent 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times voting? Well, if they're not even checking to see if you have a tourist visa or a working visa or some sort of travel visa, then what would stop them from letting you vote 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? You'd never know. And that's the whole idea, right? Compare versus 2016 presidential election results. And we're going to do that actually in the next post. Q does it for us. What do you notice? Well, I'm sure they coincide, right? Do you believe in coincidences? Not so much. Memes are important. Hashtag facts matter. So once again, get these memes out, ladies and gentlemen. Make your memes, okay? Remember, memes are the best way to speak your truth in a very quick manner. And you can also get around all the algorithms that are going to try and block you and shadow ban you. And excuse me, I misspoke in my video yesterday. I was talking about the NSA, skirting around the NSA. Some of those algorithms were developed by the NSA, but what I meant to say was that when you make memes, you can get around some of the shadow banning that a lot of us are experiencing. So thanks to a couple of the Anons who kept me honest in that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next post. 27:55, and this is where we see the comparison here. 29 minutes after the hour of 1, Q gives us this map here, 2016 election results, and you can see a direct correlation with some of these states. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So people who get illegal driver's license have a high ratio of illegal immigration, also tend to vote Democrat. Surprise, surprise, surprise. These 2 posts actually were posted at the same time as a couple of POTUS tweets, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But for now, let's talk about what the Democrats like to talk about in 27:56. Racism. 38 minutes after the hour 1 p.m. An Anon post this. This is an older Q post, which is down here. The Anon says black population waking up. And here's the post. October 31st, 2017. Why do Democrats want to control the black population? Because they need victims. Why do they intentionally keep poor and in need? Because they want these people on the proverbial plantation. And I'm not just talking about the black population, because honestly, they would be completely disposable to the Democrats if they found another group of people that they could exploit. Why do Democrats project racism on a daily basis against Republicans? Because they don't have any policy. They don't have any answers. They don't have any solutions. They don't have anything that actually solves anything. So they just go ahead and use the race card because that's the only one they got. Why do black elected officials do the crazy talk on behalf of Democrats? Because you don't want to see a white person doing that, right? You got to make it look like blacks are actually behind this. How do Democrats cover the historic facts of forming the Confederacy, KKK, and oppose all things pro-black regarding legislation? Well, they're constantly trying to sneak this in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this anti-lynching legislation that's going on right now. But, you know, as far as covering the historical facts, they just change it. You know, they put out Snopes and they put out these fact check dot whatever. And they essentially remove it. Back in the day, they had to burn the books and they made a big public show of it. Well, they realized that that's probably not going to fly. So they just go ahead and remove it. And anybody telling any truth, they just kind of quietly try to remove them too. That's how they do it. And then they try and get all their little knucklehead senators in there and try and force this legislation and turn everything into some sort of virtue signal. What happens if Democrats lose the slave grip on the black population? Well, there goes the Democratic Party because they're struggling as it is. Why do Democrats, through the funding of the CIA, prop up and install Hollywood media assets? Well, the answer actually falls in the next question. Does this fall within Operation Mockingbird? Not only does it fall within it, it's a massive part of that structure because Hollywood media assets are influential. What were the historical advantages Democrats gained by having MSM and famous people peddling narrative? Look, The presidents that they always liked were always cool within Hollywood and within the music industry, right? And, you can set out your favorite athlete, your favorite whatever. You pay them enough to start pumping up some sort of virtue signal, and everyone's going to think, oh, man, this is what's up. But what's important about that is that they turn it into virtue itself. It isn't just about policy. It's about some sort of feeling of righteousness. If you don't feel the way that we do, and they get this big Nike campaign going behind it, then you must be a racist. You must be an Islamophobe. You must be a whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So that's how they've always done it. You can't answer the above, but will laugh once, disclose detail. Oh, excuse me. Who exposed the pedo network within Hollywood? You can't answer the above, but will laugh once, disclose details. Yeah, look, I would argue that there's a lot there. And to be honest with you, some of this hits kind of close to home. It's a big network, and there's been a lot of people that have tried to expose this over quite some years, and many of them got removed. Some of them were directors, some of them were actors, some of them were musicians, some of them you know, some of them you don't. And there are some out there right now that I think would really, really like to and are afraid to, and it's a big deal. The pedo network within Hollywood is rampant. We've known about guys like Kevin Spacey for years. It's only just now that it's come out into the public narrative because of the arrests and this and that. But there are some of these names that we've known about for a long time. Weinstein was another one of those guys that everybody knew about for a long time. And so to me, it always seemed like, gosh, about time that this guy finally gets popped, right? So I'm not really sure who Q is. Who is talking about here, but there's many that you could probably think of. The network which controls this false narrative, which in turn keeps the black population under control, is being dismantled. False local and national black leaders will be exposed next as the shills for the Democratic Party. And that's already kind of starting to happen, isn't it? Follow the money. And that's really the most simplistic thing to do when kind of approaching your meme making, whatever. Follow that money. Maxine Waters has a $4 million home and cash assets in excess of $6 million. And remember, her husband was pretty savvy with his bank, wasn't he? How is that possible? One example. All of these questions help to paint the full picture. Q asked date posted early. Well, the date was October 31st, 2017, prior to the black population awakening. Well, I couldn't really answer that for you specifically. I think there's, that's kind of a constantly unfolding thing, right? But I'm sure there's been a lot since then. Why did we emphasize as important? Well, because we knew that this was going to come to a head. We knew the Democratic Party was going to run out of bullets and that they were going to have to pull the race card in a big, big way. And they're really doubling down on this. When you're awake, we can see clearly. And I think they mean to see you can see clearly. And Q clarifies that in the next post here, 27:57, 39 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m. Swap we for you on the move, Q. And we are too. Let's move on to the next post. 27:58, 40 minutes after the hour of 1. We get this graphic pointing out what we were saying here. Now, where you're seeing the red arrows coming from are these links. And of course, I can't actually link them here, but we'll see it in a minute. The Anon says Q post, Delta 0 minutes, meaning 0 minutes later. Trump tweets are just after Q post. So this 27:54 and 27:55 were posted at 1:28 and 1:29 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, respectively. And then these are the links to the Trump tweets, which we'll see in the next post here. Yet another blatant Q proof. 00 Delta. Trump team is with us today, friends. And guess who logs on to say, we love our memes, don't we, folks? That would be Q+, whoever that is. Hallelujah. Post 27:59, we see the tweets themselves 43 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m. And they're actually a little bit backwards here. They're both videos, and they both come within a minute of each other. This one is at 1:29. And you can see here, this is the one from 1:28. This Q post is supposed to actually match up with this video here, which was posted at 1:28. And then you have this one here posted at 1:29, which matches up with the video above. So they're just flip-flopped here, but let me go ahead and show them to you over here on Twitter. Donald J. Trump, like I said, they're both videos, and you can go ahead and check them out here. The one is talking about the angel dads and angel moms, and the other one was talking about, let's check it out.
We want to stop drugs from coming into our country.
There you go. We want to stop drugs from coming into our country. Okay, so I'll let you guys check those out for yourself. But both of these videos were posted at the exact same time. So the only difference here is that this graphic matches up with this tweet. This graphic matches up with this tweet. I hope that makes sense for you there. 0 minutes delta, says the Anon 2. 0 minute delta, guys, 2. And then Q comes on and says Q plus, whoever that is. Now, over the next few Q posts here, Q is essentially working with the 8chan Anons, helping them put together these memes so that they can be a little bit more concise. Q is confirming this Anons right here at 49 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m. We see these graphics side by side. Q confirms and says, "You are the news now." 2761, 50 minutes after the hour 1 p.m. We see what we saw here in 2759, but they are flipped back correctly now. We see this post, 2755, posted at 129, next to the POTUS tweet at 129, 0 minutes delta. And then we see a new one here. This was from Q's post 2684 back on February 10th regarding the Army Corps of Engineers. And this looked to be posted at the same time as Donald J. Trump's tweet. Well, it happened again. Amy Klobuchar announced that she is running for president, talking proudly of fighting global warming while standing in a virtual blizzard of snow, ice, and freezing temperatures. Bad timing. By the end of her speech, she looked like a snowman, a snow woman. Yeah, she's on my burn list about that video too. And this Anon says 0 delta from today and the last 0 delta, 16 total now. Q says, "Thank you, Patriot." Now, 2762, 59 minutes after the hour 1 p.m., Q says, "Think about why separated both two posts instead of placing both in the original. At what point is it mathematically impossible?" Because it was a second Q proof, okay? There were 2 0-minute deltas. Does that make sense? And that just gives more strength to the Q narrative, right? And that's exactly why they did Q 2 posts, so that we could actually show them back to back. 2763, 2 minutes after the hour 2 p.m., we see this graphic again with this one on top. In the bottom, showing the clear comparison. Anon says good stuff, and Q confirms. Let's move on to the next one. 2764, 13 minutes after the hour 2 p.m. Now we get this Anon who made a GIF here, and you can see both of them flashing back to show you sort of the difference here. Rocking GIF overlay. Q says, "Great work, Patriot. Slowing will further highlight." I'm assuming they're talking about the pace of this GIF here, so that slow it a little bit so that people can get it. But the clear point that we're seeing here, and what I think is rather fascinating, is the process of being able to tell this story using these same pictures, but finding a more efficient way to constantly tell this story. And the better that we can improve our system, the better that we can tell our story. And I think that's really at least the takeaway that I get from here. Let's move on to 2765, 1 minute after the hour of 3 p.m. We get this post from back on November 7th. "We got what we needed. Thank you, Patriots. Senate means everything. Think judges, Supreme Court, and cabinet." We've talked a lot about this, right? We're not going to get any kind of prosecutions to stick if the judges are all corrupt, right? And you know these knuckleheads are going to try and take everything to the Supreme Court, so we got to be able to meet them on those grounds. D-class overrides all potential House blockades. Let's know that again. D-class overrides all potential House blockades, meaning that's truth. POTUS has ultimate authority. And I would add on, not just ultimate authority, ultimate responsibility to declass that. Shift to Senate judiciary oversight from House to now occur. Stronger position and held in reserve for this scenario. Lower chamber is the House, used as a 2-year starter. Yeah, we saw how those things went with Jackaless Jim Jordan, right? Trey, Giggity Gowdy, Devin Nunes. They struggled in the House, right? Upper chamber, Senate will be used next 2-year closer. Yeah, that's the 2-year closer right there. That's your cleanup batter. He bats fourth. He gets everybody knocked in with this home run. Military plan, no impact regarding ongoing investigations. Team is stronger. Pro. And then we get this Fox News link right here. From Fox News, Graham calls McCabe comment beyond stunning as he threatens to subpoena former FBI chief. Senator Lindsey Graham vowed Sunday to investigate alleged discussions at the Department of Justice about invoking the 25th Amendment as a way to oust President Trump from office, and threatened to subpoena former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe if he refused to testify on the matter before the Senate. We're going to find out what happened here, and the only way I know to find out is to call the people in under oath and find out through questioning who's telling the truth, because the underlying accusation is beyond stunning, Graham, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said on CBS News Face the Nation. Graham added that he also plans to subpoena both McCabe and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein if they won't voluntarily agree to testify before the committee. And I just want to point out real quick here that with this whole story here, it appears to me that between McCabe, Rosenstein, and James Comey, one of those stories has to be untrue. We got two guys that wrote books, and Rod Rosenstein is seeming to contradict their story. Someone's lying. There's no organization beyond scrutiny, Graham said, and there's no organization that can't withstand scrutiny, and the FBI will come out stronger. He said, but we've got to get to the bottom of it. What are people to think after they watch 60 Minutes when they hear this accusation by the acting FBI director that the Deputy Attorney General encouraged him to try to find ways to count votes to replace the president? That can't go unaddressed. Yeah, pretty amazing stuff, right? And it seems to me to be all part of this big movie right here. I can't understand why anybody in their right mind, if they were guilty and wanted to CYA, would go ahead and do that. Graham's comments come on the heels of a Fox News story that reported that former FBI lawyer James Baker, in closed-door testimony to Congress, detailed alleged discussions among senior officials at the Justice Department about invoking the 25th Amendment. Well, that is true, but to be fair, it came out before the Fox News story. You heard it right here and with QAnon. We've known all along that James Baker was testifying. We know that some other people were also set up in the batter's box, meaning that they were going to come up next. We've got a lot of testimony to still come out, and I've been saying this a lot over the past few days. It's not going to drop in one bacony, cheesy bomb. It's going to come out bit by bit by bit. And that's what's going on with this James Baker testimony. Every little revelation is going to get a bunch of attention on Fox News, and it's got to get out there. That's how it has to happen for the public narrative to really understand this. Slow for us, but necessary for them. The testimony was delivered last fall to the House Oversight and Judiciary Committee, so we've known about it for that long. Fox News has confirmed portions of the transcript. It provides additional insight into discussions that have returned into the spotlight in Washington as fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe revisits the matter during interviews promoting his forthcoming book. How convenient. Baker did not identify the two cabinet officials, but in his testimony, the lawyer said McCabe and FBI lawyer Lisa Page came to him to relay their conversations with Rosenstein, including discussions of the 25th Amendment. Okay, so we're familiar with this story, and this is more conflicting testimony also between Baker and McCabe. I have a feeling that Baker sold them all out probably to protect himself, but we're going to see that. And all this stuff here, let me take you back here, that was originally being investigated in the lower chamber. That was the 2-year starter, and now it's all been transferred over to the upper chamber, which is the Senate. And that was why the Senate was so important for us to get, because that was going to allow us to get the judges in place and to get some prosecutions eventually. Will be used as a next 2-year closer. Military planned. No impact regarding ongoing investigations because nobody is leaking anymore. Team is now stronger. Q says, was that planned? Yeah, I imagine it was. And it would have needed to be, because this was not an easy thing to do. Look, we had to clean out the entire DOJ pretty much. And there was a lot of leakers that we had to get rid of before we could even do this. And that's why this is taking so long. But you can see it start to take shape now. And that is what Lindsey Graham is referring to. Let's go ahead and move on to 2766. 17 minutes after the hour of 3. You are here, you little sneak. Nice. Q takes us back to 2681, a post from February 9th. And this was in regards to what looked to be a 90-day plan here, allowing, of course, for some hold periods here. You see this 90, 60, 45, 30. And we're not going to cruise through all of this here. Q takes us to this Politico article that I posted on Twitter the other day. Whitaker to stay at Justice Department following stint as acting AG. Former acting AG Whitaker will remain at the Justice Department despite William Barr's being sworn in to lead the department. Whitaker, who served as Chief of Staff to then Attorney General Jeff Sessions until President Donald Trump tapped him for the acting role in November, is now a senior counselor in the Associate Attorney General's office, a department spokesperson said Friday. Okay, so he's a senior counselor. And remember, that's really important. He served as a chief of staff to then Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Look, this guy didn't just come out of nowhere. He already had some knowledge of what was going on, right? Now, I just want to cruise you down here to the last paragraph. Whitaker's career plans had until now been something of a mystery. On Monday, a representative of the National Sheriff's Association offered the outgoing acting attorney general a gift after he wrapped up a speech to the organization during a Washington, D.C. conference. Great. Is it a new job? Whitaker quipped. Nice. So Whitaker's going to stay on, but we kind of already knew this, right? Q says Whitaker remain DOJ senior staff. We see it right here, right in the center of this post. Whitaker remained DOJ senior staff. Barr meeting Huber and OIG. So what's going on with Whitaker and Barr? Barr with Whitaker reviewing Rod Rosenstein's notes regarding strong reservations to declass due to sources and methods, plus foreign classification irreparable harm. So we know that Whitaker knows a lot about what's going on here, right? So just because he's not AG anymore doesn't mean that he's not going to hang out and do some work like the linebacker that he is. Senior counselor in the Associate Attorney General's office. Planned. Looks like it was all along. Let's move on to the next post. Post 2767, 29 minutes after the hour of 4 at Snowden. What happens when Russia gives you up? Will the CIA protect you? Sleep is important. Q. Well, I don't imagine the clowns are going to protect you. They don't have any more use for you anymore, Snowden. You made your bed and you lied in it. And I'm sure Russia is not probably housing you anymore. So I don't know. It's hard to know where he is. I would suspect that he may be in China. That would be my guess. It wouldn't be surprising if he's linked to a lot of these pictures where we've seen tailing people. That would be my guess. Now, it could be other people, but that would be about the only place I can imagine that would be housing Snowden at this point. I don't imagine it would be Russia, and I'm sure he can't go running to the clowns, because once you no longer serve their purpose, I think we all know what happens, and you can just think of John Perry Barlow in regards to that. Let's move on for now. 2768. 4 minutes after the hour of 5 p.m., we get a nice collage from one of our favorite knucklehead actors that I've never heard of, this Jussie Smollett guy. And we get a link to Fox News here. Cory Booker withholding judgment on Smollett case after calling it attempted modern-day lynching. Democratic presidential candidate Cory Booker told reporters Sunday that he would withhold judgment on the alleged attack on Empire actor Jussie Smollett after calling the incident an attempted modern-day lynching when it was first reported last month. I'm going to withhold until all the information actually comes out on the record sources, the senator from New Jersey said after meeting with voters in Rochester, New Hampshire. We know in America that bigoted and biased attacks are on the rise in a serious way. And we actually even know in this country that since 9/11, the majority of the terrorist attacks on our own soil have been right-wing terrorists.
Allah Akbar!
The majority of them white supremacist attacks. Wow, Booker, that sounds like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard you say, and you've had some doozies. Okay, so look, here we have yet another case of a young, entitled actor, musician, whatever, who just so happens to be a DNC activist, and his story goes that he got jumped by a couple of big, tall, white MAGA supporters, right? White nationalists, when in all evidence seems to point to the fact that he hired up a couple of juiced up knucklehead Nigerians to slap him around and play pin the tail on the white boy. That's what I'm seeing out of this. They need to get slapped by their mama. Chonkla upside the head. Harris and Booker applying political pressure regarding Chicago PD, regarding Smollett false flag case. Yeah, if this indeed is a false flag, which it appears to be, this guy right here needs to see some jail time. That'll wipe the smile off your little face. What bill did the Senate recently pass regarding lynching? Well, we talked about this the other day. This basically makes lynching a quote-unquote hate crime. Who were the authors of the bill? Harris and Booker. What false flag event took place just prior to the passing of the bill? This one. Did the false flag event involve a noose? It sure did. How handy is that? Wow. Did you find that on an episode or whatever you're on? Did the false flag event sway senators in their decision to prevent fake news attacks regarding Smollett case? Well, if they passed it, I guess so. Did fake news contact many senators prior to vote seeking out pro, nay, in attempt to coerce using Smollett case as foundation for possible future smear? Yeah, there again you go. There is the influence that Hollywood seems to still have. As long as you put one of these dummies up here and make it all a bunch of virtue signaling, then you must be some sort of insert your adjective here, phobe, if you go against it or if you don't buy the narrative. What is the mathematical probability of these two events occurring within this same time period? What is the relationship of Smollett and Booker and Harris? Well, I don't know, but it would not surprise me to find out that this dude is some nephew. He's been a child actor for a while, so I'm sure he's wrapped up somewhere, and we've got too many Q posts for me to go into his genealogy or whatever. I don't care about this guy. He's a liar. He's a racist. That's what matters to me. But it would not surprise me to find some sort of actual relation connection between Smollett and Booker and Harris, and we may find out that very soon because you guys Anons are brilliant. Will Rahm Emanuel get involved? Yeah, probably. This is Chicago, and after all, he's got to have his little swan song before he steps down. So yeah, likely, whenever there's race baiting, you got to have the race baiters show up, right? Will the Chicago PD cave under pressure? I don't know. I guess that's a matter of whether or not enough of these facts come out and actually, make the media cave to the truth. Now, Cory Booker came out saying that this was a hate crime and it was lynching just in time for them to pass their lynching bill. And here we have this potential lynching. And of course, if you don't believe his story, then everybody's going to weep and call you a racist, right? That's the whole point. So I don't know if the Chicago PD is going to cave under pressure. Now, we had some video here, and I think I've got it right here. That is vicious. Probably not as vicious as some of the burns coming your way, Jussie Smollett. Well, here's some of his activism. Up top, we see him with Mad Maxine Waters. And there he is, appearing to be cooking with his F. Donald shirt, keeping it classy. In the center, there he is with Valerie Jarrett and Kamala Harris. Time's up. And down below, he's speaking at the Resist March and posing with the president. And I don't recognize that dude. And there he is doing some sort of activist statement with a Donald Trump fake lookalike whatever standing behind him. I'm sure they mean to portray him in a good light. Here he is over on the right side. K. Michelle, whoever she is, and Jussie Smollett campaign for Hillary Clinton in North Carolina. How about that? Chance the Rapper leads huge parade of young folks to early voting sites. So you can see this guy's a real humanitarian, a real activist. And I don't know if you can see this in the bottom right corner, this was a tweet that he tweeted to Donald Trump not long ago. Shut the hell up, you You will continue to run this country further into the ground, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm done giving this dude time. Q adds on to this knuckleheadedry in 2769, 13 minutes after the hour of 5 p.m. with a quick history lesson. We've seen this graphic before. 13th Amendment abolished slavery, 100% Republican support as opposed to 23% Democratic support. 14th Amendment gave citizenship to freed slaves, 94% Republican, 0% Democratic. 15th Amendment, right to vote for all, 100% Republican support, 0% Democratic support. Wow, that is some serious irony right there. Maybe somebody should give a quick history lesson to Mr. Biggie Smollett right here. Let's move on. 2770, 23 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. How do you infiltrate the MSM? Well, I would say you just do it like you do almost anything. You breed into it. Example 1, ABC News executive producer Ian Cameron is married to Susan Rice, national security advisor to Barack Hussein Obama. CBS News CNN journalist Biana Vitalievna married to Peter R. Ortzag, who is director of Office of Management Budget for, yep, you guessed it, Barack Hussein Obama. How about CBS News president David Rhodes, brother of Ben Rhodes? Yeah, national security advisor to Barack Hussein Obama. Wow, it's almost like I'm sensing a trend here. ABC News correspondent Claire Shipman married to Jay Carney, White House press secretary for, yep, you guessed it, Barack Hussein Obama. And then we see this right here. Now, I kind of tend to think that Q might be talking about us watching a movie. Q has used these ellipses before in regards to evidence. Sometimes it's a matter of counting the ellipses here, but I think they're talking about you are watching a movie. That indeed seems to be what we're watching. But yeah, this is very, very rampant. And we've talked a little bit about, I believe it was Claire Shipman before, and her relationship to Jay Carney. But as you can see, that's exactly how you infiltrate the MSM. And let me also rememberize you too of Anderson Cooper. He's got himself a pretty well-to-do family himself, right? And a lot of those connections run back to some pedophile connections too. MSM equals the arm extension of the Democratic Party. Nothing to see here, Q. And there's a very specific reason why Q says nothing to see here that is directly related to NBC. That's their little slang right there. And that's why we're always seeing that. Now, we've talked at great length about the Washington Post, but MSNBC, NBC, that is another one of those groups with this bred in knucklehead deep state MSM fools. And that's exactly what Q is talking about. Nothing to see here. Let's move on. Post 2771, 28 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. We get this time link right here. Q says they knew the reach then. Think about now. And we've talked about this article before. This was published back in June. 25 most influential people on the internet. And there you can see them right there. How many can you name, folks? We've got girl with fruit. And then there's guy with suit. And a little bit of makeup. And there's this girl. And that's Rihanna. And these guys are related, right? They're those guys on YouTube. Paul or whatever. Jake Paul or whatever. I don't know who that is. Looks like an Asian Princess Leia. And then we've got Kanye. He's got kind of a terrible looking sweatshirt there. Anyway, you can be famous and influential like these people on the internet. And the Korean boy band BTS. Nice. So the point is that President Trump had made this list, and Q was down here on this list too. Now, I'm not going to scroll all the way down there. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Q says they knew the reach then. Think about now. Yeah, it was published back in June. Well, we're going to see that right here again in 2772. 44 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. There's President Trump right there as one of the most influential men on the planet. And then there we go right there. There's Q right there. And you can judge by the haircut that Q is clearly Archie from the Archie comics from back in the day. Yep, it's just a hunch. Well, we get this graphic also. You had a hunch the news system was rigged and you couldn't put your finger on it, huh? This might solve the puzzle. And here's a couple more of our connections here. ABC News executive producer Ian Cameron is married to Susan Rice, national security advisor. Then we've got Ben and David Rhodes right here. Claire Shipman and Jay Carney. ABC News and Univision reporter Matthew Jaff is married to Katie Hogan, Obama's deputy press secretary. Wow, who would have guessed that it would have been an Obama era guy? I would never figure that out. ABC President Ben Sherwood is the brother of Obama's special advisor Elizabeth Sherwood. Can you believe it? It's another Obama connection. CNN President Virginia Mosley is married to former Hillary Clinton's deputy secretary Tom Nides. Okay, well there you go. That throws a wrench into everything. Now we have a Clinton connection. So this must totally throw off all of this. Now, I can't really read all this. And now you know why it's no surprise the media is in Obama's pocket. They think there might be a little bias in the news. This also explains the cover-up of Hillary's private server and emails, Benghazi, Obamacare, soaring costs, $20 trillion U.S. debt, etc., 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 etc. Isn't it interesting that every place you look in Obama's administration, people fill positions because of who they know, not what they know or how competent they are. And I can't really read that there. Something about why our country has so many problems now you know. Q says the world is waking up to the truth. Expect attacks to dramatically intensify across all platforms. Great. Well, that should bode well for me because that's just what I need in my life is more problems with platforms. Let's move on. 2773, 47 minutes after the hour 6. We get this tweet here. And this tweet was from the 17th of February. The Mueller investigation is totally conflicted, illegal, and rigged. Should never have been allowed to begin except for the collusion and many crimes committed by the Democrats. Witch hunt. We got witch hunt. H is capitalized. And we also have this capitalization of this C over here too. Q says 3 today. What are the odds of that? And responding to this, Anon, who says, new POTUS tweet, 1 minute delta. And this is the tweet right here. Here you see it on the Twitter. And you can see back here that 4 p.m. 1 delta. Q says 3 today. What are the odds of that? Sounds about right to me. 2774. 51 minutes after the hour of 6, Q is asking for a graphic request. And the 3 tweets in their relationship to the Q post, it looks like Q is wanting us to put that together in a graphic. 3Q POTUS 0 delta request Q. Q gets their wish and post 2775, 6 minutes after the hour of 7 p.m. And you can see here the 2 different Q posts, 2754 and 2755, and they in their relation to the 2 presidential videos that we talked about earlier. And then off to the right corner here, we see the Donald Trump tweet as well as the Q post 2772 that we covered. The Anon says 3-0 deltas today, sir. Q says, well done, Patriot. Important to note, Q drops just prior to POTUS, meaning that it's important to know that Q obviously must have some sort of proximity to the POTUS to be able to drop right before he does. Something big is coming.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Post 2776, 2 minutes after the hour of 10, 22:02:02. We've got some juicy stuff here. This is Barr to Mueller. Bob, Show me the evidence and reasoning for why this investigation was started and still ongoing. Mueller to Barr. With regards to the president, we have found no links or ties to any foreign entity, etc. Barr to Mueller. Mandate was clear. Verify and investigate reports of possible foreign collusion between President and Russia. What justification existed to effectively launch a massive domestic foreign surveillance campaign against the president, president-elect/president, and members of his transition/campaign team? Mueller to Barr. Steele dossier, along with media corroboration of those findings? Barr to Mueller. Was the Steele report a trusted and verified report per Intel to continue, especially considering the funding party was the opposition party? Mueller to Barr. Those facts were never taken into consideration. FISA court granted authorization to conduct based on conclusions presented. Barr to Mueller. Was FISA court made aware of all details surrounding the dossier? Mueller to Barr. No. We believe there was urgency placed on the authorization given the gravity and timeline of events that those involved negated to populate fully. Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that President Trump was going to become President Trump. Barr to Mueller. Why were efforts made to continue investigating the president, interrupt his official capacity in governing if the only doc presented was unsubstantiated and unverified? Why were questions and threat of subpoena communicated to the president if no factual foundations existed? All charges thus far are unrelated to the original mandate. Why are you still active and pursuing a crime if no verifiable evidence or evidence through discovery exists? Then we got Barr speaking to Rod Rowe, being Rod Rosenstein. What justification did you have to effectively expand the mandate, not report that expansion to Congress in order to seek a crime outside of Russian collusion? What specific reason and or facts existed to justify the appointment of a special counsel to begin with per the law? Why did you recommend to Sessions that he should recuse? Why wasn't the mandate/budget and regular updates provided to Congress upon request? Why is everything kept confidential and under inappropriate classification? Was the purpose of investigating to find a crime versus investigate evidence of a crime? Classified 1 through 99. Q.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because
That's what I call bacony, cheesy, kablow! Yes, I want to see more of this conversation right here. Now, I'm not so sure if classification 1 through 99 would be pages 1 through 99. That would make sense to me. You can let me know down below. But it looks like Barr is wasting no time putting Rod Rowe out the dough and getting this thing on. It's about time that we move on with this. As a nation, we need to move on with this. And I have a feeling that this is part of a conversation that we're going to start seeing in the next 24 to 48 hours, likely on Hannity by way of Sarah Carter or John Solomon. You can let me know down below. But in 27 to 77, Q adds on at 3 minutes after the hour 10, just simply saying disregard any misspelling on the move. Yeah, likely in Air Force One, getting it done. I think I did see one there, but I don't really think it was a real big deal. But there you go. Exciting stuff coming forward. Let's move on. We got one more Q post for now. 34 minutes after the hour of 11, we get this Twitter link right here. From the POTUS Twitter, William Barr is arriving at a Justice Department that desperately needs an infusion of credibility, writes Kim Strassel from the Wall Street Journal. And this is an opinion piece. Translation, it's a hit piece, and I just found out now that I'm on a paywall with Wall Street Journal. Now, I did get to see a little bit of it here, but basically it was saying that William Barr is coming at this time of crisis, and everything has been a failure. The last 2 years have been a failure, and all of Donald Trump's cabinet has gone away, and it's all Donald Trump's mess, and William Barr is going to have to try and make some sense of mess, and it kind of makes you wonder if this guy could be credible. You see what I'm saying? They're kind of muddying the waters here, and Q says, do you believe in coincidences? Kitchen is hot. Well, if indeed there is any teeth to this conversation right here, and I imagine, like I said, we'll find out in the next 24 to 48 hours that there probably is, that would make sense as to why they're immediately going on the attack about Barr and the whole idea of Donald Trump's cabinet being a mess. The kitchen is indeed hot, but it's unfortunately for Mueller and Rosenstein, their feet to the fire. And yet more Q post 2779, 55 minutes after the hour of midnight. We get this graphic right here, and we're going to look at it in a second. It comes from this Twitter handle here, I Heart POTUS. And it shows our 3 deltas today, February 17th, 128. And then we see here 128. And it was just seconds later. This one here, 129, 129. Again, just seconds later. And then here again, 644, 645. Really just a matter of seconds, really. Very, very cool. Thanks for that. And it looks like Q approves of this graphic. It says, excellent graphic. Seconds matter. Mathematically impossible. 17th. Yeah, how about this? This all began on the 17th day. 17 deltas. 17 months later after Q first started posting. Very cool. Let's move on to 2780. 7 minutes after the hour of 1. An Anon post this from CNN. Former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe says President Trump's own words were among the reason top officials decided to open a counterintelligence probe and obstruction of justice investigation into him. How about that? Their own words. Well, you'd think that would have already gotten him in jail by now because we probably have all that. Classic deflection. The dog ate my homework. Evidence of crime is what you need, Mr. FBI, not dislike and bias to open an investigation. Former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe says President Trump's own words were among the reason top officials decided to open a counterintelligence probe and obstruction of justice investigation into him. Yeah, not a very good reason to open an investigation unless, of course, they actually said, I colluded with Russians. Q says, dead cat bounce. Nothing can stop this. Yeah, when you got a dead cat, it only probably makes one last bounce, and that's about it, and it's done. All right, let's move on to the last post here, or at least the last post for now, 2781. 13 minutes after the hour of 1, we've got ourselves a little movie theater right here. Let's see what's playing. We got 45. Ooh, one of my favorites from earlier this year, Tarmac. And then, of course, there was FISA-gate. Trump 2020, and sanctions are coming. And this comes from the status right here of Mariah S. Enjoy the show. Now, I'm not sure who exactly made this graphic, but it is very, very cool. I'm not really sure what it says in the poster there. Interview something. It looks like it's written in Korean. But yeah, very good with the Photoshop skills there. I like it. Q says, impressive, most impressive. Q. Well, it looks like a big show is coming. After all, we got an appearance from Oddly Confident Lady. So it looks like we've got a lot of stuff coming in the wings. I have a feeling that it's going to have to do with this conversation right here, like I said earlier. But either way, those are your Q posts for now. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more, but until then, enjoy the show. All right, kids, those are your Q posts. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. I greatly appreciate you. For those of you who are new to my channel, please keep in mind that from time to time, you're going to get unclicked, unsubscribed, and unnotified. That's just how it goes. Do me a favor and just check back from time to time at In Pursuit of Truth, or join me at one of my other channels. They're all linked down below, my Gab, my BitChute, my Brighteon.com, and I'm over here at Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. Also, my P.O. box is down below if you're old school. My email is down below, and if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below too. All those links are down below, as well as the links to this mega meme, so go check that out, will you? All right, kids, that's all I got for you right now. I have a feeling I'm going to be seeing you really soon, again and again and again. This is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay free.